My friends at Easy Cater are workplace catering pros, helping you find food for everything from daily employee meals to staff meetings and special events. Visit easycater.com/leaderassistant to find out more.
Hi, I'm Rowe Hoffer with today's leadership quote. Leadership is not always found in the loudest voice, in front of the biggest and most receptive crowd. A leader whose intent is pure and authentic can move a crowd and a single person with a whisper.
The Leader Assistant podcast exists to encourage and challenge assistants to become confident, game-changing leader assistants.
Thank you for listening to the Leader Assistant podcast.
Hey friends, before we jump into today's interview, I wanted to share a brief note about this episode's sponsor, which is LifeSquire. LifeSquire is an assistant resource center focused on matching executives with assistants and creating relationships where both sides thrive. They would love to help you find the perfect job or work with you to enhance your skill set. You can check them out at lifesquire.com/leader assistant. That's lifesquire.com/leader assistant. All right, let's jump into today's interview. You can check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/81. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the Leader Assistant podcast. It's your host, Jeremy Burrows, and today I'm speaking with Rowe Hoffer. She's a senior executive assistant to Mozilla's co-founder and chairwoman. Rowe, how's it going?
It's going really well. How are you, Jeremy?
Good. Just excited to chat with you. What part of the world are you in?
I am speaking to you from Mountain View, California, in the Bay Area.
Awesome. So let's kind of jump right in, and why don't you tell us a little bit about your backstory? What was one of your first jobs, and what did you learn in that role that you still use today?
Gosh, this will take us far, far back. So my first job the title was Guest Relations Officer. And this was for the Manila Film Festival. I used to live in Manila, Philippines. And I was doing that job when I was 18 years old. So pretty young. And what I learned from that is definitely how to have my voice and advocate for myself. It was a pretty wild ride. You know, you're dealing with actors, actresses, directors, producers, all in the biz, very international. And being so young, I didn't have my land legs firmly planted, but it was a fantastic opportunity, obviously, for the excitement of it. But as well, there were instances where I really was way over my head. And so what I learned from there is fortitude and really having a voice, not being afraid to push back when necessary. As well, I learned how to think on my feet and also have a presence that commanded respect and at least not be dismissed so easily.
That's great. So you said there was a lot of interesting experiences. What was maybe one of your biggest mistakes that you made in that role?
One of the biggest mistakes was just not thinking that my role being such a smaller scale compared to what the other people's roles were, that mine would be insignificant. So the lack of belief that just because I was in the background, just because I was young, that it didn't matter what felt to me was not the way to do things or how to go about things.
So what do you love, or actually let's take a step back. When did you kind of really own and go into that EA role where you thought, okay, this is my career?
In 1994, that's the first EA job I had. And I have this hashtag on LinkedIn called an accidental assistant because that's pretty much what I am. And I think most of us are accidental assistants. I don't think we all woke up one day and said, in the future, I'm going to study to be an executive assistant. Unlike now, I don't think we had those college courses to go into this career that we love. But in 1994, I was working as an office assistant. I had come from a background of fashion and theater, and moving to the States, to the Bay Area specifically, the demographic obviously was not that for theater and fashion. That was not exactly the most obvious job that you'll find. So I took this job as an office assistant and did that for a couple of years. And the chief operations officer, when she needed an assistant, turned to me and saw the potential. And that's how it all started. And it was really a soft landing because she had known me for a few years and she became this fantastic mentor who just to this day, all the things that I learned from her still apply, even though that was when 1994 till 1996 was when I worked with her.
So what's kind of your favorite part about the role of an assistant even today?
From then to today, I would say it's just never always the same. It's not a cookie cutter job, and it's a combination of so many things, and there are so many reasons I love it. So I feel it's an art form. I feel that there's art combined with a lot of science behind it. So it's like, how do you say it? It's like being a shapeshifter. And whatever shape you currently are in, you have to be it completely. So when I think about when people say assistants wear so many different hats, I'll take that even further. I think we are the hat, the shoes, the top, the bottom, the jacket, the accessories. So for that reason, I love the variety and how vast the reach, the potential, and even the risk and the challenges. They're never the same for any set of things. One day is just completely different from the next.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. I love the variety. I love that there's never a dull moment. I don't know that I could do a cookie cutter gig at this point.
Right? And so do you agree that it's such an art form because whatever it is that you're doing for that moment, you're so immersed in it, but it could be just a minute and you've just completely changed gears and you've shifted and now you're fully immersed in that one. And the transition is almost needing to be flawless. You just have to master the art of juggling balls and spinning plates.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like to call it managing the tension. This kind of idea that you're always being pulled one way or the other. And sometimes it's at the same time. Sometimes it's within a couple of minutes. Sometimes it's from the exact same executive that just pulled you the other way a few minutes prior. So you kind of have to manage and embrace the tension as an EA. So yeah, totally agree.
Correct. And when you said the tension, but the beauty of the tension is it creates energy. So when there's tension, it could be good energy. And yes, it could be bad. But the part about EAs is any bad energy, it's our job and it's in our DNA to shift that into positive. That's another reason why we love it.
Yeah. So what's one productivity hack that you can't live without? What's something that really helps you get stuff done?
You'll find this very basic, but the one thing I cannot live without is my email inbox. I know that we fear inboxes that are unread, but I tend to read every single message, but the ones that I can't fully digest or wrap my head around, I leave them in bold. So either I flag it, there are so many different ways to catch your attention. But for me, the simplest way is to leave them unread, even though I've read it. So that's my hack, because then it's just glaring at me. Every time I go back to my inbox, it's there. And since I don't like that it's bold, then it forces me. It makes me just go back to it. And sometimes it takes me 3 attempts, but that's my hack for myself.
No, I actually do the same thing. I read things, and then if I need to address it later and I can't handle it right that second, I'll mark it as unread. And then, it's kind of my to-do list. So
There were some features back then when there were alarms, or it would pop right back in. And I don't know if that's just something that went away for our email
Are you on
inbox
Microsoft?
feature. No, see, that's the thing.
Well, I'm actually, so you're in Google then? Or are
No.
you in, no, you're not in that. You're on Mozilla. You're on Mozilla.
Yes. So,
Yeah, because there's like a snooze feature that I use in Gmail that brings it back up to my inbox, which I love.
oh wait, I do have that where you can actually customize the time that it's going to come back at you. Yes,
Yeah.
I do have that as well.
Yeah, I find that
But it
very
doesn't.
helpful.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just said I find it helpful.
It doesn't come back as bold though.
Oh, there are, yeah. There used to be a plugin that I used that did that, where it did come back as bold. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's a plugin somewhere for it. But.
So there's a call out to our fellow assistants. If
Yeah.
anyone can tell us how to do the snooze button, have it come back as bold, we'll welcome that.
What's the email provider again that you guys use?
We actually do use Google, actually.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes.
But it's through Thunderbird? Like, do you use Thunderbird or?
We have Thunderbird. Yep, we do have it.
Okay, cool. Okay, so if an assistant called you tomorrow and said, Rowe, I am just not respected in my role, what do I do? What would you say to them?
There's a lot of layers to peel there. I would tend to ask, first off, what is the relationship like between you and your executive, and how do you together appear to the rest of the company or to the rest of your executive team or EA team? I always believe in the fact that how you're treated by your manager is what will transfer over. So that's my first question to an EA who feels not respected. Now, if it's your executive who's showing a lack of respect for you, then we have to dig a little deeper than that. Is it you individually, or is it the role you play? Is it just not a valued position in the company? So there's a lot there that we need to unpack, right? But my advice would always be, first off, be consistent in the good work you provide, because eventually that's the bar that you're setting, just even for yourself, but for other EAs as well. So you gather respect from the places that are ready to give you that and are available to you. And hopefully that carries over, because sometimes there are people who are just not tuned in. And we've all run into people who don't even know the value of an assistant. Not that they mean to disrespect, but just the fact that they don't see the weight of the value and impact that an EA gives. So to me, it's get respect from other sources, and hopefully it spreads like wildfire.
That's good. Let's talk a little bit about boundaries. How, specifically with our executive, or maybe other executives that we work with, how can we know when boundaries are crossed?
When boundaries are crossed. So can I paraphrase the question, and instead I say, how can we not know?
Yeah, there you go.
So how can we not know? We, as EAs, one of our superpowers is the fact that we have this strong spidey sense. I heard that late into my career, and I thought, what is spidey sense? But basically, that's the ability to know things without something tangible, right? It's that gut feeling. And we all know that gut feeling has basis. It's real. It's that one that sends off alarms and bells, and whether they're soft like gentle chimes or whether they're fire alarms, we all have it. So speaking to our roles as EAs more specifically, how can we not know when a boundary is crossed? We feel it. And the thing about that feeling is what we do about it. So I'll jump ahead. How can we not let someone cross a boundary? I'd say, first off, our tasks are so unpredictable that it's easy to not realize when one's boundaries crossed. So listen to that gut feel. And I also find that our foundation as EAs, we have those small tasks. And to me, they're not menial and they're not grunt work. They're all part of the package. They're all part of that shape shifting that I mentioned earlier. So I personally, Jeremy, I don't find that my boundaries are crossed often because I think I give myself and other people such a wide berth. And it's not the task that's making me think that my boundary is crossed, but rather the how and the why it was asked of me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I know when someone asks me for something because it's necessary for the advancement of a project or a goal or our mission. Now, how it's asked of me, that's where I sometimes draw the line or where I have my alarm bell going off.
Yeah, that makes sense. So this is kind of a good segue to the next question. So a lot of assistants kind of noticing a trend towards a little bit of entitlement among assistants.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of relates to the boundaries discussion because they're like, well, I'm trying to set boundaries and I don't do that. I'm putting my foot down because, maybe I'm too valuable or I'm too important to go get my executive's coffee or pick up the dry cleaning. So now while I'm certainly a firm believer in the fact that our role is not just to make copies or pick up coffee, I also believe that true leader assistants and true leaders really are never above, quote unquote, above things, like taking out the trash or picking up coffee. So what have you seen in the EA community, and how would you encourage assistants to embrace all types of tasks and really kind of resist that entitlement desire?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So what I've seen happen, in my opinion, is a result of a very positive step towards the right direction, and that is that EAs are viewed as thought partners, critical to the success of the team, of our execs as well. So we've come a long way from being that pool of secretaries, like in that movie 9 to 5. Yeah, remember? So because of that shift, it also brought with it more responsibility and, an elevated category in the way we participate. So all good. That's wonderful. We are more than that. How many words a minute do you type kind of role? So the flip side to that, though, is I have seen assistants forget that the word assist is in our title. And that is not limited to only those elevated responsibilities that we now enjoy. And as I mentioned earlier, our successes as EAs, I feel they're still built so much on the work we do, the basic work that we do, work that often are not even listed in a job description that we found or we answered, or the performance review. So when you said true leaders are not afraid or they don't find it beneath them to roll up their sleeves and get the work done, if I see an executive who does that, then to me, that's just the most basic of my job. And that was the foundation my career was built on. So I don't ever feel like anything is beneath me. And as an assistant, that's part of it all. That's the beauty of it. That's one of the dimensions that we talked about earlier. That's part of not being cookie cutter. And if my getting coffee for my executive or a guest or a fellow EA means it gives them 5 more minutes to concentrate on, say, an email that they wanted to craft and send out in time, then why would that be a menial task to do? If my going out to pick up dry cleaning means my executive can spend half an hour more on a board deck, that's success waiting to happen, or something unsuccessful waiting to happen. So that's my feeling on that. So assistants who feel that we've become so important and elevated, Jeremy, that tends to bite them back in the butt. I have to say, it comes around because when you present yourself as such, you are limiting yourself. You are not exemplifying that wonderful aspect of what we are all about. And you don't want to be remembered for not being helpful or for not assisting. So again, we can call ourselves executive business partner, but at the most basic, the word is still assistant.
Yeah. Yeah, and I actually like the word assistant. I know some people are like, oh, I don't like the title assistant. I'd rather be called business partner, which I'm nothing against that title either, but I personally like the title. I like how it communicates that you're helping someone in the company and an executive or a team of executives accomplish their goals, and that's something that I'm passionate about. I love helping other people win.
Yes, correct. And I'm with you on that one. I do take pride in that word assistant. And I know what you're saying about, sure, we are business partners. We are ambassadors. But the word assist to me gives me so much more. It's more vast for me as far as here's what I can do. A lot. I'm not pegged into one round hole. I could expand because the word assist is to be helpful. So there's the DNA in all of us, correct? There's that DNA assistant that is in us. It's that pride and love for being available to people in whatever capacity with the right boundaries.
Right, of course. Awesome. So if you could snap your fingers and instantly give all assistants more of something, what would it be?
Time? No, okay. We all say we never have enough time. I would give all assistants, I'd give them all wonderful mentors. Mentors that actually get the job we do. Because there's a lack of mentorship, like true mentorship that every single one of us needs forever, regardless of how elevated or how high or whatever category in your career level guide you've gotten to. Somebody that will just be able to push and pull you out of your comfort zone, because it can get comfortable after a while.
Yeah, that's great. How do you work on developing new skills and growing existing skills in your role?
There's a lot of that happening right now while we're all working remotely. So I am finding I have extra time because there are so many parts of my role that are not happening right now, which is travel. It's not there. Arranging of travel, it's not there. So there is just unbelievable amounts of reading to be done. And I am all of a sudden just so engaged with and in LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. I know you are. All these articles that fellow assistants write and all these different researches that show up. So my go-to right now is LinkedIn, because at least I can curate the things that I like to read or that are pertinent for this particular time. And how to stay not complacent, I think I would chalk that up to the fact that my boss will never let me be complacent, because she lives in ambiguity. So I have to be very comfortable with that. And for me to not drown, I have to overextend myself constantly. She makes me feel like I have not been with her for 9 years, half the time. So that's good, because then I never feel like I've got all of this under control. There's a certain drive in me that still wants to learn and still wants to not feel like there's nothing more for me to do.
So how has that been to work for the same executive for so long, and a pretty large organization, pretty well known, Mozilla? How have you? What have been the kind of pros and what have been the cons of working with the same executive for that long?
So what I love about Mozilla is we are such a unicorn, and we're needing to stay relevant because of the mission that we do. So the internet is ever evolving constantly. So that means we, as the people behind Mozilla, we need to stay on top of those, the shifts, the switches, what is important, and to not ever be stale, because then what are we for? So the fact that I love about Mozilla is also that it's ever evolving. And so 9 years for me, Jeremy, feels like maybe 3, because there's something new that we're developing. There's something new we're fighting for. There's something new that my chairwoman is joining or speaking about or being asked about. And through osmosis, I feel like I am evolving along with her and with the company. The downside is really, to me, probably perception of people. So people perceive that I maybe am just too comfortable and I don't want to extend myself out, which is so completely opposite if you knew the work within and the kinds of missions and goals we have that we aspire for. So other than the perception of people or looking like, wow, 9 years, why? Because we live in a day and age when people think 9 years is, wow, you must be so bored or so uncomfortable with change, which is not the case.
Right. Yeah, I was at my last organization for 12 years, and I was with my the founder as his EA for about 6 years. So, but he, I was there for another 6 before that, before I was his direct EA, but still working for him. And yeah, it is funny that nobody stays in a job that long anymore,
Right? Is that the call you would get from recruiters? That's always the call I would get. It's time for you to go. I heard that once. Wow, you've been there 5 years. It's time for you to leave.
Yeah. Time for something new. But yeah, it's great that you get to work for an executive in an organization that is always adapting and changing and doing new things, and yeah, keeps it interesting. So
yes.
So what makes an assistant a leader?
What makes an assistant a leader? Knowing your job really well. Because first off, you have to be secure that you know your job. You sent me a wonderful article that said, honor the work. Remember that?
Yeah.
And the work that you do, whether small or big, small project, big project, you need to honor that. And when you do, people will tend to follow. Just like my quote about leadership. think I wrote that because in my head I was thinking, my voice is so small. But at the same time, some of the loudest voices don't inspire me. So an assistant being a leader doesn't have to constantly be on some stage or has a team of 45. It could be there are 3 of you. It could be there are 2. It could be you're 1. So what makes you be a leader is showing up as authentic and as inspiring as you could possibly be. Because once you're not authentic, then it unravels, because you yourself will know there's something missing in the work. You're not honoring the work anymore. So when you do that, when you honor the work, people feel it. Your vibe is different. When you don't believe in your work, you make mistakes. You don't care as much. And then on the other side of that, always be humble about the work you do as well. Because once you feel that you have nothing else to learn, the minute you stop thinking that you have questions that need answers, I feel that that's the death of your inspiration and of your drive. So to be a leader, you need to dig deep in yourself. Do you believe in the work you do, and do you honor it?
Yeah. Couldn't have put it better myself.
But I love that article you sent me, so thank you for that.
Yeah, it's. I'll have to link to it in the show notes. It's an old essay by Dorothy Sayers called "Serve the Work," I think. But yeah, I actually include a snippet from it in my book, but I'll have to share that in the show notes. Okay, so thank you so much, Rowe, for taking time out of your day. I really appreciated chatting with you. Is there anything that listeners can do to support what you're up to, or maybe where they can find you online?
Yes, so LinkedIn, please, let's connect. We are a wonderful community, ever so helpful and ever so available to each other. So let's keep it that way. If I can backtrack, the one thing that I should have done sooner is to be very but what is the word, Jeremy? Participatory. There you go.
That's a big word.
I should have been more engaged in LinkedIn earlier in my career. Mm-hmm. So for those assistants who are beginning and finding your land legs, do the LinkedIn thing. It's just a wonderful spot for like-minded people and unlike-minded people that you can learn from. So find me on LinkedIn. I am also on Facebook, though that's a bit more personal, but I love the fact that it connects me to people that maybe I don't know yet, but I will get to know.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks again, and I'll share your LinkedIn URL in the show notes so people can find you and say hi and reach out and connect. Keep leading well, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of the week.
Awesome. Thanks.
Bye, Jeremy.
Thanks again, Rowe, for a great interview. Check out the show notes at leaderassistant.com/81, and we'll talk to you next time.
Please review on Apple Podcasts. GoBulls.com